Hello, everyone. I'm very happy that you have returned to my channel. After everything that has happened in the previous episodes, we have witnessed the beginning of Hùng and Hoài Ca's journey. A journey that is not loud, not flashy, but filled with determination. Starting from nothing, without favorable conditions, without a path already laid out ahead, they chose to begin with everything they had. Each brick placed down was not just for building a structure, but also a step toward building a future. Each bag of cement mixed was not just material, but sweat, effort, and countless tireless working days. Each frame of the coop gradually taking shape was not simply a part of the farm, but hope, a belief that one day everything would stabilize and life would change. In those previous days, though exhausting, there was still something very clear. That was the direction. Slow, but steady. Tiring, but meaningful. And because of that, when entering a new phase, when everything began to take form, when plans were no longer just thoughts, but started becoming reality, both of them could feel a bit of relief, a clearer sense of hope. But then, right at that moment, when everything seemed to be stabilizing, an unexpected incident appeared, not loud, no warning, but enough to make everything pause. Right before the most critical moment, that morning, everything started like any other day. Hùng left home very early, when the air still carried the coolness of dawn. When everything around was still quiet, he went to the farm, out of habit. No one needed to remind him, no one needed to push him, because to him, that place was not just work, but something he pursued every day. As usual, he planned to check the materials. Not a big task, but extremely important, because every bag of cement, every steel bar, had been carefully calculated. All were part of the next plan. Just a small shortage could affect the entire progress. And then, the moment he arrived, he froze. Not because he was tired, not because something blocked his way, but because what he saw was not the same as yesterday. In front of him was no longer the familiar scene, no longer the neatly stacked materials, no longer the readiness for the next stage of work, but instead, an emptiness not only visible before his eyes, but one that made the heart feel hollow for a moment. The cement bags were gone. The steel bars had disappeared as well. A crucial part of the materials, the things both of them had carefully saved, calculated piece by piece, now were gone. Hoài Ca stood beside him, saying nothing, not because she didn't understand what was happening, but because she understood it too well, so well that there was no need to say it out loud. This was not a mistake, not someone accidentally taking them, and certainly not a counting error, but they were taken. Clearly, the surrounding space remained the same, but the feeling was completely different. No longer the calmness of the morning, but a heaviness that was hard to describe, not just because of the lost materials, though that was not small, but because of what came with it. Time, plans, unfinished intentions. The rainy season was not far away. Sunny days would not last forever, and if the construction was not completed in time, everything that followed would be affected. It was not just about slowing down the construction, but an entire chain of plans that might have to stop. Farming could not begin on schedule. Income, already fragile, might be delayed again, and what they were trying so hard to hold on to might slip further away. Hùng stood there, silent, his eyes fixed on the empty space ahead, as if trying to confirm something. His hands tightened, not out of anger, not out of an urge to react immediately, but because of a feeling difficult to describe. A feeling as if everything had just paused, not completely stopped, but unable to move forward right away. It was not the greatest loss, but it happened at the worst possible time, and that was what made it feel the heaviest. Not because it couldn't be rebuilt, but because there was no longer much time to rebuild. The atmosphere then had no voices, no rules, only silence spreading, a silence that made every thought clearer, and also made them feel more clearly the pressure right in front of them. A morning that seemed ordinary, but opened up a completely different challenge. A challenge not in the plan, but one they had no choice but to face. And from that moment, everything was no longer the same. Right after that, the news quickly reached Hoai. There was no hesitation, no delay at all. He immediately set off, not out of curiosity, but from a very clear sense of concern, because he understood what was happening was not just a minor incident. It could lead to many consequences afterward. When he arrived at the farm, Hoai did not rush to ask questions. He observed every position, every remaining trace, every unusual empty space. As someone working in the field, details that might seem insignificant became more important than ever. The disturbed areas, though not too obvious, were still enough to recognize that there had been interference. Not accidental, not a mistake, but a deliberate act. Hoai did not say much, but his eyes clearly showed his assessment. This was not a simple matter, not just the loss of a few materials, but an issue that needed to be clarified. Right after that, he contacted his colleagues. No roundabout talk, no delay. Everything was deployed quickly. A case file was created. Information was recorded. The investigation officially began. Everything was clear, methodical, exactly how such a case should be handled. But even though everything started immediately, the results could not come right away, because a case like this could not be concluded just by looking at the scene. It needed time to verify every detail. It needed time to collect evidence. It needed time to follow the remaining traces and find those involved. Meanwhile, on this side, the farm was still there. The unfinished parts of the construction, the plans waiting to continue, could not be paused for too long, could not wait for a result with no clear timeline. Time was still passing. The rainy season was approaching, and each passing day carried more pressure. That afternoon, the atmosphere at the farm was still heavy. But then, Hoai returned, together with Litu San. Nos joinis. No long speeches. They came as something very natural, not bringing anything grand, not needing any special preparation, just simply being there at the right time. Litu San slowed her steps, her eyes looking around the farm. The unfinished walls, the incomplete parts, the empty spaces, still carrying the traces of the morning. She didn't ask much, didn't bring up what had happened. She just looked and understood. Then she turned to Hùng, her voice gentle, but clear. You just keep going. Just one sentence, not long, not complicated, but carrying so much meaning. It was not comfort, not a typical encouragement, but a confirmation that things had not stopped, that they could still continue. Hùng looked at Litu San, didn't respond immediately, but his eyes had changed. No longer the emptiness of the morning, but something clearer. Hoai stood beside them, not interrupting right away. He let the silence pass, then slowly spoke, his voice calm, not loud, but firm enough to be felt. What's missing you can take from me for now. He paused briefly, then continued. Finishing before the rainy season is more important. Not a suggestion, but a solution. Not a symbolic kind of help, but a well-thought-out decision. Hoai did not talk about money, did not mention what would happen later. He only spoke about what mattered most now.
Time, progress,
and opportunity.
Hùng lytutien,
Still silent. Not because he didn't understand, but because he understood too well. He knew what Hoai was offering was not just material support,
but trust.
a level of trust given at the most difficult moment. And because of that, he hesitated, not because he didn't need it, but because he didn't want to. He didn't want to depend on others, didn't want to carry the feeling of being indebted, because to him, what they were building was from their own effort, something he wanted to complete with his own hands, without relying on anyone, without asking for help. Hoai Ca stood beside them, still silent as before. She didn't join the conversation, didn't give advice. She just looked at Hùng. Her eyes carried no pressure,
No urging.
only understanding. Then she gently nodded, a very slight nod, so light that, if you didn't pay attention, you might not notice. But for Hùng, it was enough. Enough for him to understand what she was thinking. Enough for him to realize this was not weakness, not abandoning principles,
But a choice.
a choice to preserve what they had worked so hard for, to keep this construction, to keep the progress, to keep the opportunity, and perhaps also to keep the belief that everything could still move forward. The silence lingered a bit longer. No one spoke, but everything seemed to have an answer. Finally,
Hùng nốt that.
not quickly, not immediately decisive, but an acceptance. After careful thought, he accepted, not because it was easy, not because there was no other choice, but because he understood if he missed this moment, if everything stopped, the cost to pay would be far greater. And from that moment, a decision was made, not only to solve the immediate difficulty, but to continue the path they had begun. A path, not easy, but still being held firmly, with everything they had. And perhaps, after everything that has happened, after the days when it felt like everything could stop at any moment, people begin to understand one thing. Family is not the people who are only present when everything is going well. It is not about easy moments, not when everything is already prepared, but when everything becomes the most difficult. It is when they could choose to leave, but choose to stay. It is when they have no obligation to carry the burden, but are still willing to share it together. There is no need to say too much, no need to prove anything grand. Just being there at the right moment is enough. What Hùng and Hoai Ca have gone through has never been an easy journey. What Hoai and Lytutien have done was never something they were required to do. But all of those things, when placed together, create a very special connection. A connection not based on benefits, not based on conditions, but based on how they choose to treat each other in the most important moments. Maybe no one says it out loud, but everyone can feel it. After that incident, everything has changed, not in an obvious way, but through a quiet transformation. A trust has been formed, an understanding that needs no explanation, and those things are what lasts the longest. So what about you? After following this entire story, how do you feel? What do you think is the most important thing that helped them get through that difficult time? Was it persistence? Was it belief? Or was it the timely presence of those around them? And in the challenges ahead, when things are no longer simple, when new situations arise, will the relationship between Hùng and Hoai continue to change? Will it grow stronger? Or will new distances appear? Each choice, each decision, will they bring them closer together or create new challenges that even they have never imagined? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Who knows? Your perspective might open up new ways of understanding this story. And if you feel this story has given you something, even just a little, don't forget to give the video a like. Share it so more people can follow along. And subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what comes next. Because this journey may not be over yet, and what lies ahead might bring even more unexpected moments. Thank you for watching. See you again in the next videos.
Xin chào mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Hôm nay thì mình đang làm video về câu chuyện của Hoài Ca và Hùng nha mọi người. Nhưng mà câu chuyện hôm nay thì có sự xuất hiện của Tiểu San và Hải nữa. Tiểu San và Hải hôm nay đã làm một việc rất là tốt để giúp cho Hoài Ca và Hùng. Thì cái lồng trại đang xây dựng của Hải ở trên một người của Hùng gặp phải khó khăn. Thì Hải đã ra tay giúp. Nhưng thực ra họ cũng là anh em trong nhà nên giúp nhau cũng là điều đương nhiên. Và hơn nữa Hải là một người có tấm lòng tốt. Cũng nhờ sau việc này và mối quan hệ giữa bốn người càng gắn bó và khăng khít hơn, cũng như yêu thương và hiểu rõ nhau hơn, đồng hành với nhau trong con đường phía trước. Vậy thì liệu diễn biến câu chuyện sẽ như thế nào? Cả hai có thể trọn vẹn đến với nhau hay không? Và câu chuyện tiếp theo sẽ ra sao? Mời mọi người đón xem những tập tiếp theo ở trên kênh của